Let's talk about light. Light is the natural agent that stimulates sight and makes things visible. It is what has allowed us to see the world with the use of our eyes. Light is a form of energy made up of photons, and it travels at 299,792 kilometers per second. That's how the sunlight coming from the sun can travel to the earth in the span of 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Not just that, light is an electromagnetic wave. The colors we see in the visible light are the result of different wavelengths of light being absorbed and reflected by objects. It is between the ultraviolet waves that come from the sun and infrared waves which can be found in TV remotes and other remote controlled devices. Knowing this, how does light actually work? How does it interact with different objects? Well, light has four properties: reflection, refraction, transmission, and absorption. The first property is reflection. Reflection in the most basic sense is the bouncing back of the light when it makes contact with a surface. There are two ways light can be reflected: specular reflection and diffuse reflection. Specular reflection is where the light is reflected off a smooth surface at the same angle at which it approached the surface. A good example of this is a person looking in the mirror. Diffuse reflection, on the other hand, is where the light is reflected at a rough surface and the light is scattered in different directions. A good example of this is shining light on a crumpled piece of foil, scattering the reflected light in many different directions. The second property of light is refraction. Refraction is where the velocity of light changes as it encounters another medium. There are two ways light can be refracted: from low to high index and high to low index. Low to high index is basically where the light goes from small to big. A good example of this is when the light is being shined on water. If you look at the objects underwater inside the glass container, they would appear bigger than they actually are. High to low index, on the other hand, is basically where the light goes from big to small. A good example of this is when the sun enters and leaves a water droplet, which makes the light appear bent. The third property of light is transmission. Transmission is where light passes from one side of a medium to the other side of the medium. A good example of this is when you're looking at your phone, the glass isn't actually what is producing the light, but rather the display panel underneath it. Therefore, you're just seeing the light through the glass. And lastly, the fourth property of light is absorption. This is where the light does not pass through the other side and heat is generated. A good example of this is when the sunlight makes contact with the surface of a black shirt. The color of the shirt is what allows the light to be absorbed and energy to be generated. This is why it's always better to wear a light colored shirt when you're staying under the sunlight and to wear darker colored shirts when you're in a cold environment. Those are the four properties of light and their examples. Thank you for watching.